Welcome back, Mr. Ferryman himself. It's the man Jeffrey Chuck Norris.
I don't know if I like that. Ferryman. It implies something else. Not that I'm against that or anything, but
You are not magical and you do not have pixie powers, but instead you carry the ticket of voyage for someone to go from one place to another.
yes, yes, I do. I
Is
do that.
that's got to make life feel a little bit better. Like I was talking to David, I was like, did you ever think out of your 30 something years you've been alive that when you were 10 years old, you think you'd be doing serial reviews in your garage while high off your ass?
There's no way he ever thought in a million years that he'd be doing something like that.
That's what
No
I'm
way.
saying. The world is so unpredictable, and I don't like it, and I also love it. Like I love it in that you can really honestly do anything you really want. Like if you just want to, wear sweatpants all day, you can do that. You can do that now. But also, when you look on Twitter or something, you see like this girl from famous TikTok girl just announced her pregnancy. I'm like, who gives a shit? Like, is that really important into your life?
Social media has definitely progressed so much in the short lifespan that it has existed. Wow. Um, that I mean that's important to a lot of people. They have these things called influencers, and these the weirdest, most random people become influencers, and people just hang on their every word, their every moment, their every purchase. It just I don't get it. I guess I don't get it. Maybe we're just a little too old to understand this. This is more of like, I guess, a teenage thing,
Are they
teenage obsession.
are they influencers or is it like technically considered acting? Like I know there's social media influencers, which honestly, in my opinion, doesn't seem like a bad job. It seems pretty easy. Like if you're telling me I can just post up a picture, get a million followers, and then get paid for doing that, like I'm down. I mean, I know there's things like, isn't there like cancer influencers, like the people that will sit down and act like they have cancer in the photos for like the medication or something? They don't actually have cancer. A lot of them aren't suffering from it. It's just fake news.
I don't know about that. I wouldn't put it past anybody to do something. I mean, people play cancer patients in commercials and movies and things like that. So I don't see why that doesn't translate over to social media. Absolutely.
So I'm gonna fight the fight of why aren't they getting real people with cancer to play those parts?
Um, I don't know. They could definitely learn something from those truth commercials. The anti-smoking commercials where they get real people suffering from all the downsides of smoking and stuff like that. I can't do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, with the woman that's got a freaking
Yeah,
I was 30.
tracheotomy going on.
I'm 36 years old. I'm like, you look horrible for 36. Like, good
Well,
God.
that's what smoking does for you. I'm so glad I quit. Smoking will age you really fast
Yeah, but
and
then
do horrible things to your body.
you'll find a study that actually smoking is actually good for you. It helps eliminate a lot of bad chemicals. There's plenty of studies I guarantee you that you can find out there that say that. I mean, American Spirit's whole thing was like, which is weird because now Aunt Jemima's not Aunt Jemima anymore. It's Sugar Mill Paper Company. And I'm like, at this point, nobody's going to scream, hey, pass the Aunt Jemima. It's going to be pass the Sugar Mill Paper Company. And you're going to be like, fuck it, just pass the syrup. But American Spirits, for instance, they slipped under the radar. They haven't been changed. And their whole thing is like they're environmentally friendly. And I was like, what do you mean? There's a ring at the end of your cigarette that stops it from burning to a certain point. So it basically snuffs itself out. So in case it gets thrown on the side of the road and it's still lit, it doesn't cause a forest fire. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe cigarettes aren't as bad as we say.
I can't sit there and make the argument that a ring at the end of a cigarette to prevent it from continuously burning is going to save the world or anything like that. But it's a small step forward, and you know what? Maybe the world just needs a bunch of small steps in order to progress. Uh, but
That's Captain Planet's motto.
I mean, you're never going to convince me that cigarettes are going to ever be considered healthy or can change anything in a positive way.
Can I
And
be
that's
a like
coming from
a
a former smoker.
if there's influencers, can I be a cocaine influencer? Like
Absolutely.
why do everybody have to focus on the bad things? Let's focus on the positives. Cocaine, you have an unlimited amount of energy that runs
Mhm.
out until you run out of cocaine. Um,
Keeps you skinny.
exactly. No, that's not true. Jack Nicholson,
Oh, okay, well, there's probably other factors into that too. But I
he
mean, for the
looked
most part,
good.
like the young people who do cocaine seem to be skinny.
He looked good back in the day. Mars Attacks. I just saw that movie. It is amazing.
I
Let me
love
say,
that movie.
That's like that movie people say is terrible, and I'm like, "It's amazing." I was watching it, I was like, "This is like one of the best movies of all time," on the concept of like there was just way better like I don't know. There's some things where I'm like, it would not get played today just because like the one person asked a question, but you see a young Martin Short. I'm like, look at this handsome son of a bitch. And he goes up there to answer questions. He goes, you. And then one person just goes, do you think that they'll be accepting to men and women? And the dude obviously looked like a guy dressed as a girl. And it was like, that wouldn't get played today. That would not happen.
Um, well, back up real quick. Yes, Mars Attacks is absolutely fantastic movie. It's one of my favorite movies. And it is a stupid movie. It is a fantastically stupid movie. It laughs at itself the entire time, and that's the point. You know, that's why you got a bunch of stars in it. It was never meant to be anything beyond just a stupid comedy. And that's part of the brilliance of the whole thing. And there are a lot of things that happened back in, well, God, when I say back in the day, I make it sound like it's decades ago. Um, you know, when movies like that were being made, that sure you probably wouldn't be able to get away with in such context today. That was an obvious laugh at the transgender community. Now you wouldn't do that. You would be portraying that character in a more positive way, but not for laughs. It would be more, probably a little bit more serious tone, in my opinion.
Even though saying like back in the day makes you sound like you're 90 years old, you have to also keep in mind that like 5 years ago is completely different than where we're at today. Like, I think we're just like, we're changing so drastically. So, like, if you say something like, remember when, Happy Meal toys, when that was a thing, maybe like 10 years ago or something, that's still a long time. You can compare 10 years, 20 years, 300 years, 400 years, 500 years, and on and on and on. It's they're all relatively pretty far out, especially in the past probably decade or so. Everything's just changed so drastically. I mean, Mars Attacks is probably the best representation of what's going to happen if aliens actually do want to talk to us and speak with us and all these things. I'm like, because what else would they have to learn from us? Like, if anything, they would probably fix us. Like, I always thought about, like, the fear of Terminators, like robots creating or becoming more powerful than us and then annihilating us. What happens if they helped us? What happens if they looked at us like we're their parent that's dying? Like when you look at like when your parents get older and they're elderly, you got to put them in a home. You look at them like I still need to take care of you because you took care of me. Well, we created the robots and they'd look at us like, hey, now it's our turn to help perfect you. But then that would probably lead to them hacking us up and turning us into half robots, which I'm not a fan of.
And I think that's the problem right there because when you have the human element introduced into it, no matter what your intentions are, even if they are good, so we're creating this robotic technology to help better humankind. And they make them more aware. So you start introducing artificial intelligence, they start becoming aware. It's like God, I really hate to use this as a part of my metaphor, but being a movie guy, I got to. So let's think of Avengers Age of Ultron for a moment here. So, they were developing Ultron as this shield, this protection for humanity and for Earth. But as he learned about humanity, as he learned about Earth, its history, its violence, its war, he understood that there was only one thing he needed to do to protect humanity, and that was to destroy humanity. And it's kind of like the same idea behind Thanos and things like that. So when we're creating these things and we're trying to make them more self-aware, unfortunately, humanity is going to be its own downfall. It's the same thing of like if aliens came, are they really going to be here to help us, or is this going to be more like Independence Day thing where we don't understand them, they don't understand us, and then there's this kind of like war element going on. Of course, Independence Day is a bad example because they actually did come to destroy us. But Mars Attacks, I mean, do we have anything to learn from them, or do they have anything to learn from us? Absolutely, we have more to learn from them than they do for us. They're obviously more technologically advanced. They came to our planet, you know, so they're going to come here. I don't think, honestly, as naysayers this may sound, I don't think any alien would come here to try to fix us. I think aliens would come here to basically stop us.
I would look at it like I like the theory that maybe they created us. Like if you think about like a bunch of aliens sitting in a room talking and doing that, "Yak, yak, yak, yak," and then they just take like 4 vials and they're like, we're gonna drop each of these little vials that's filled with these organisms on different planets. One was Earth, one was Mars, and one was this. And eventually we're just like the ones that have kind of evolved the fastest, or like at least being able to sustain itself, but we're just tearing each other apart. Like looking down on like, when are we going to intervene? Like these are our creations and these things are destroying the planet that we put them on that actually could sustain. Maybe if we created another microisms, like another batch, like you got batches of cookies. Usually the first batch isn't the best, usually it's the second, the third time or something. So maybe they're looking at it like, they're fighting over MC Hammer's parachute pants. Like we gotta fucking go. Gee, it's like, let's say, look at the 80s. I mean, imagine if you took the whole entire time span for the past 1,000 years and put it in like a documentary of like, and then there was the 80s. Anybody explaining the 80s, there's always one word I would say, or one drug that's known for the 80s, and that was cocaine. Like you would just say that. It's like future generations are going to look back on recordings of us, not know what to believe. They're not going to know what's fact. They're going to be looking at old records and stuff. We look at history books, we look at a bunch of things that's written in a biased view at most points, especially research studies. But imagine you got a million fucking podcasters out there leaving a record data or such a technological footprint for future generations. They're not going to know what to believe in. They're going to hear something where it's like they're going to hear Signs was a terrible fucking movie, but then they hear my podcast and they go, Signs was an amazing movie, Robbie said so. It's like it's going to be weird to see what like the future is going to have to look back on and when they're going to find fact or fiction, because now I'm starting to think facts aren't even facts. Everything gets exposed 10 years later as not being true. What do we classify water as? H2O is the chemical symbol for it, but that's our own interpretation of what it is. I bet you another species of alien is going to come down and be like, that's not H2O, that's sigma psi Hoi. And you're like, what does that mean? It's like, well, that's how we discover what this is.
um so you bring up a lot of great points there. uh the information age that we're living in is definitely going to only become bigger and bigger and bigger as the years go on and things like that. So yeah, so in the future, our next generation and beyond, they're going to look back on everything that we have here. So we thought it was overwhelming when we were in school reading through our history books and things like that. I remember sitting in history class just kind of being overwhelmed by everything. But you're basically going off of scholars and reaccounts of people who were either there and it was passed down by generation by generation. But again, as that information age expands and you bring in a lot more opportunities to tell a story, tell a story, tell a story, the more times that more times that story is told, it's going to skew. It's going to be filled with opinions, and it's going to be just keep growing and growing and growing till it's no longer the original story. So to take it back to the whole podcasting thing, yeah, there's a you know thousands upon thousands of podcasters out there like you and me telling our stories, doing our things. You and I aren't necessarily talking directly about things happening in current events or anything like that, but there are a ton of podcasts out there who are, and they're going to be very skewed because like you and me, we insert our opinions and our beliefs into a lot of what we talk about, and they're going to be doing the same thing. So just to use an example, January 6th, the insurrection at the Capitol, many won't call it an insurrection. Many won't call it the one of the deadliest attacks on a government building in U.S. history or anything like that. But then there are going to be people out there who will call it that. There's just so many divided opinions out there, and it's going to be up to our future generations to interpret what they are and what these things actually were. And we need to be responsible as information as what's the word I'm looking here for here, as sharers of information, as storytellers. Basically, is it our responsibility to try to be as factual as possible so the future generations don't have to play too much of a guessing game.
Kind of like the percentages are skewed. You got to think of all the scholars that were recording information back in the day. There was probably one dick that was writing something down, and he was like, well, I don't like this, so I'm not going to include it in there. And then we just don't have that information. But now that 0.1% chance that there was that asshole that wasn't going to record all the correct information that actually happened because they didn't like a certain thing, that's turned into 99% of the population now, with people not liking a certain thing and wanting to take it out. But here's the funny thing is, if we give it, let's say aliens come down here, they're going to annihilate us off the earth. They let us know, like, hey, you guys got about 30 days to figure out what you want to leave in this database machine right here that's going to be left for your future generations. And each person has their own database machine. It's kind of like their own, like, what are you going to program into this thing to leave to the next species that comes up that's just going to be just like us, but probably better in every way. So
Hmm.
what would you leave? What would you prioritize to put into that machine, knowing that after you do that, your whole species, this whole human race is going to be annihilated. And then another one's going to come up right behind it. And the only, I would say, information they have to be able to make it better and also advance, get tools built and everything will be the information that you left in that machine. That's a freaking
That's
mouthful to
a
get out.
that's a tough question. I mean, there's so many things that I would like. Do I have a limit as to what I can leave?
You could throw a bunch in there if you want. I would say probably try and keep it under like at least 50.
Okay. If I had to leave something behind, just data for whatever comes after us to build off of, um, God, that's
I'd
that's
throw like
tough.
maybe what would you probably throw like a series of Mr. Rogers in there so people know how to talk to their neighbors correctly.
um, well, yeah, absolutely. Wholesome television like Mr. Rogers, sure. I definitely would want them to know that. But I also think it's important that they know the dirty side of our history as well. So, I throw in documentaries about World War II, talk about the Civil War. I mean, this is more America based. I know this is kind of an earth based thing, but, you know, talk about war, talk about theology, whether you want to believe in it or not. It's such an important part of a majority of societies throughout the entire world. Um, works, you know, books, movies, those types of things need to be preserved. If I were a new race, not knowing anything about the previous race that came before me, and I think it'd be awesome to sit down and watch movies and learn about what we thought was entertaining and things like that, or read a book and be like, "What the fuck were they thinking? This is the dumbest shit I've ever read." And I'm speaking about Twilight there, Stephanie Meyer. I'm talking to you.
Can you
This is
imagine
the
if the
dumbest
next
thing.
if the next species comes up and all they have left is Nicolas Cage films to fucking look through? They
Oh my
wouldn't know
god, then
what
I feel bad for them.
they would be in a paranoid schizophrenic rage with the aspect of like, oh, do we go good? Do we go bad? I would leave a bunch of myths and folklore behind to make them think that there were giants that long lived here in the city of Atlantis.
I vote we just leave the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe behind for them to watch and make them believe that that was our history.
That's how all the people died. They died by a Thanos' snap.
Yep.
I would
And
like to leave the
we just
movie.
don't put Endgame in there.
I would like
Just
to leave
let them believe.
the movie 2012. So we could just think like that happened, except it wasn't 2012 when it happened. It happened in like 2021. So it was like this whole like tsunami. Do you think you could survive that scenario? I mean, I like because I think what's important is like I know we landed on Mars and everything, and it was really interesting because if you saw back in the day, like people were like when we landed on the moon, it was a kiss your wife, kiss your girlfriend, you're home from war, America won, high five, and people at the bar grabbing shots. Then when we landed on Mars, people like watched the 20-second clip and like, all right, I'm good, off to Twitter, off to the next thing. I'm like, wow, like our priorities have really changed. Like that was a mass movement, I would say.
I'm really glad you brought that up because this most recent mission that we did to Mars, as there's nothing routine about it. I mean, anybody who knows anything about this kind of stuff will know this is not a routine mission. But yeah, you're right. People seem to be like really bored with this idea. Why are we doing another rover to Mars and stuff like that? Guys, these are technological and scientific advances that are going to change the course of history as we continue to move forward. For the first time ever, we've recorded sound on Mars. Have you heard that clip? It's literally just wind blowing on Mars, but we have never been able to record anything like that in the history of our planetary explorations. That's fascinating stuff. And we've also landed the very first drone with this particular rover that just landed on Mars last week. This drone has two propellers on it, two four-blade propellers. These things are huge and they have to spin so fast, almost the speed of sound, just to be able to get this drone to fly, to lift up off the ground because the atmosphere is so thin there in Mars. This is fascinating, fascinating stuff. And the simple fact that we can think this stuff up and people sit around in rooms doing the math, working out the equations, and just making this thing happen before it even happens, because once you get that thing up there, you're relying on computer and autonomy to take over. So it's absolutely fascinating, and I just really wish the world would appreciate it a little bit more.
It's kind of like well, it is history in the making, but also isn't every single day technically history in the making? The fact that the humankind or human species has really made another day in the like nobody I think really kind of realized that like with COVID and all that that was history in the making of what we just experienced. Like that's going to be recorded forever. And that didn't hit me until I saw a Taco Bell ad for a chicken taco, and I was like, oh my god, like history in the making. And like 20 years ago, we're thinking soft shell tacos and stuff, and now we have literally the outside of the shell is chicken skin and it's
Hmm.
fried. And then they
Yeah.
have like egg inside of it. I'm like, bro, like history in the making. It sucks it took that to wake me up, but it just kind of shows you the aspect of like, I think people's attention spans it's just hit a different level, and it's really really weird to see because like sooner or later eventually down the road we're going to get to the point of developing space travel, but I start thinking like effectively to where we can shuttle people to the moon and we can have colonies on the moon and stuff, but then it goes who gets to get the ticket there first.
Well, we're almost there. We're right on the cusp of that. I mean, you got the SpaceX program that is working on new technology every single day. They've successfully put four. I think it's four now. I could be off on my numbers. SpaceX has successfully put four astronauts into space and brought them home. They've successfully tested numerous times a rocket that can take off, and then that same base comes right back down and lands back on the same launch pad that it launched from, which is absolutely amazing. And of course, Elon Musk, in his crazy weirdness, has already been, this is all leading up to his ultimate goal of that space bus that can take us from Earth to the moon. We set up a colony on the moon, almost a spaceport that will be that kind of midway station for trips to Mars and things like that. We're talking possibly decades down the line, but we're right on the cusp of that because the technology is being created and the tests are happening today.
I don't
So
see that as
that's exciting.
important to me though, man, because the space thing is as fun as it might be to look into space. I still think the main thing that we're missing out on is the possibility of trying to live underwater. I mean, the fact that there is most 75% of this planet is water. So I'm like, there's a large amount of it that we haven't really discovered yet. There's new species being pulled out of it every single day, and we're treating it like shit, where like species are probably being wiped off the face as we're talking right now. And I look at it like,
Mhm.
why haven't we had an underwater city yet? Like, that's probably the easiest one because we can actually focus on that right here. We don't have to keep sending supplies up. We have all the supplies here to be able to do so.
I become leery of. I mean, I'm leery of space travel too. I've seen enough movies to make me never actually want to go into space. But I've also seen enough to make me not want to go underwater too. They're both absolutely amazing frontiers. Whether we concentrate on one or the other, if humanity, if you're not one of those people who believes that there's a god and there's going to be a second coming and there's going to be um all that fun stuff, you believe humanity is going to keep going and going and going until we either destroy ourselves or not. We've got to accept the fact that unless we make changes here on Earth, there's not going to be an Earth in the future for us to be able to be on. So what's the more logical possibility that we're going to make so many wonderful changes to keep Earth going that we could possibly begin to explore underneath the water and stuff like that? Or are we going to look elsewhere for the possibility of spreading? and you're going to look towards the bigger location. That just makes a little bit more sense. There's more opportunities, theoretically there are more opportunities out in space than there are in our own oceans for creating and sustaining life.
I just look at like if people lived underwater and you saw like a fucking Fritos Olay bag hit the side of your dome that you're living in, you're like, that's an issue. Like, there's a lot of
Yeah.
litter down here and stuff. Like Australia just implemented, they put bags over their filters that get pumped out from their sewage plants
Hmm.
that go like near the ocean. It collects all the trash. And after the first couple of days, these things were just piling up like giant hefty bags where you can't close it anymore. And now it's becoming cleaner and more effective. I'm like, simple shit like that. I'm like, you have to be involved in your environment to truly give a shit about it. Like, you have to be experiencing it every day. That's why lumberjacks, that's why they're all environmentally friendly. Besides smoking the occasional cigar and stuff, they know about like taking care of the forest, finding effective ways to do their job properly without ruining the whole environment. There's a lot of sustainability factors when it comes to environmentalism. And you only hear that from environmentalists. You only hear that from people that are studying it. The reason why people hate, and like, at least I would say in astrophysics, from the people I've talked to, the only reason like they have a distrust of Elon Musk is because he keeps shooting things into space, and a lot of it's just creating more space junk. Like, people don't even think about like everything we shoot up into space, probes, satellites, all this makes it harder for people on here to be able to study the stars, being able to study like astrological signs, or being able to study, different planets from here. You're creating same thing with radio astronomy. One of the most difficult things I've heard from someone who works with radio astronomy, at least in Africa, at a certain center. I'm not going to say the name of it because it's kind of private information, but he's been on the podcast, so shout out to him. He knows who he is. Um, he talked about one of the biggest problems is you're trying to record sound from millions and millions and millions miles away. And you're trying to figure out, like, hey, like, looking for any sign of life, anything, a certain noise, a certain hum, and it makes it more difficult when things are being constantly launched and rotated into space. You have to, make sure you're calculating for those things that are roaming around in space that are literally creating space junk, but also messing with observations and research down here that might progress us into the future. I mean, long, 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 long time ago, Project A119 was America was going to launch nukes at the moon to show everyone how powerful we are, that we had nukes. And then one scientist got up and was like, hang on a second. If we're eventually going to try and colonize on the moon, that's going to affect everything. That's going to throw our whole radiation off. I mean, everything we're going to do new calculated, and it's really just going to hinder our own progress. And I look at that like that's the whole idea with the time capsule thing I was saying. If we could leave something to somebody in the future, a future species, the next human race point two or something. Reagan had that idea. JFK had that simple idea too, of just tossing out a time capsule into space. And if an alien came across it, they would look at it and see a bunch of our best things. But what do you consider your best things? Because if you've seen the movie with Adam Sandler, where they send that time capsule up there and they consider that an act of war, and they come down here and use it against us, it's like, what would be in our minds things that would be so beneficial enough to leave behind? A toaster oven? Like, I would leave a bunch of like crazy shit, hot pockets, just a bunch of stuff. They're like, this was cuisine, do better.
um I'm going to try to address all this, so bear with me.
I know I
So
give a
one,
lot.
it's okay. It comes down to, all right, so protecting the environment, getting the earth back in track, just caring comes down to every individual human. So, we all need to do our part, no matter what you believe that part is. If it's something as simple as not throwing your trash out the window, I can't. I drive to work every single day and I look out on the side of the road and I just get heartbroken by the amount of trash I see on the side of the road, chip bags, bottles, and things like that. A lot of these things are recyclable items, and people just recycle. It's not hard. But if we each did just one small thing daily, every human on earth did one small thing daily, we could make so much progress in such a short amount of time. You just got to get everybody on board to do it. And that's the problem. You're never going to have 100% compliance from everybody to make these kind of things happen. And as far as like the space junk and stuff go, absolutely. We've become very irresponsible about getting more and more and more things up there. And as things become obsolete, we leave them up there. So we need to clean up the space junk that we leave up there. We need to go up there and we need to remove those satellites, or we need to push them into decaying orbits to where they can burn up. And a lot of them are just so small and insignificant that they would burn up and we would never know. We would just get a nice little light show if they were burning up over your piece of land at night. You get a beautiful light show. You might even get to see it during the day, but you would never have any of that debris or anything hit Earth because of how small and decrepit these things are. So we definitely need to be a little bit more conscious about what we're putting out into space too, because we don't want to turn space into the next Earth either. As far as a time capsule going into space, we've done something like that already. When we sent Voyager, I believe it was Voyager, might have been 1 or 2. I forgive me, I don't remember. It's been a while since I've studied this, but they legit put a record on it with different sounds, songs of our generations. There was a committee who sat around and decided if aliens, if they exist, got a hold of this,
It was the golden record.
um yeah, it was a golden record. If they got a hold of this space probe and they had a chance to listen to it, what do we want them to hear? So there is a quasi capsule out there. Granted, it's the most modern thing on it is from the 70s, so we should probably shoot again. But
Well, besides, I mean, advancing our own technology, for instance, like there used to be a thing back in the day called the almanac, which is what farmers would use to be able to look at and be able to predict the weather of what the forecast would be like. When was the perfect time to harvest? When was all these things? And it was pretty dead on fucking accurate. Like it was
yeah.
for that time period, it was like it's probably more accurate than the weather things we have now. But we use like many different evolutions when it comes to technology. But in my head, after talking with so many like psychics and people that have like paranormal experiences and things of that sort, like psychic abilities, I had talked a long time ago, like when I was on episode 200, about asked somebody like, do you think that people are going to become more psychic? This was around the time 5G or 4G, whatever the hell it was becoming like this horrible thing in the news. Everyone's like, my kid's got 5 eyes. It's like, what happened? You were living near a power line and your kid now has 5 eyes from it or something like that. Um, but I was asking, I was like, do you think that more people are going to have psychic abilities in the future? And this guest of mine, she said that she believes that it lies dormant inside of us all, and it takes like a true open mind to try and be able to release that. And farther
Mhm.
we go into the future, more people are going to be in tune with that ability, kind of like a sense of empathy, being sensing out the energy around you or willing something into the universe. Seems like a possibility. You believe something to be so positive and do something so positive, it becomes positive in reality. But with the idea of like, I feel like humans have not fully reached their full potential of evolution yet. I think there's things neglecting, because I've been watching videos of like monks that will sit on a or stand on a post with one leg, just stand on a post with one leg for 40 something days, and all they survive off of is eating glass. Like just eating glass. Like, how do you get the mind to be able to figure out that? How do you get your body to be able to react to that and make that enough nutrition or sustenance to be able to survive? And you hear like people that search all these years and years and years for enlightenment. I'm like, because they're chasing that ultimate frequency, which came out in a Vice article about how to escape space, time, and reality. And it was like lucid dreaming, but in reality. Like there's a certain frequency, because all bodies and people move at different frequencies, that you could hit that could literally escape from yourself, kind of like one aeronautics, the people that could go into your dreams, being able to escape the real reality and being able to go outside of your body into something else. And I'm like, astral form, astral projection, these are things that have been all throughout our history. I'm like, there's another level to humanity, there's another level to the human species, there's an evolution theory of all of it. I mean, we're in reality, when it comes to, we are the one species that has evolved in the past 200,000 years faster than any other species around us, being able to create things, technology. It seems like we went from creating robots to trying to figure out a way to make the ultimate human by adding like neurological enhancements and physical robotic parts to us, trying to make us like the ultimate thing. I mean, that's the objective goal that they're going for, but there's a way to upgrade our regular organism. That's a tough word to say. Materialistic self, like the ones that are our flesh and blood. There's a way to upgrade that. If they're now finding out that we don't have to use our appendix anymore, we don't need our pinky toe anymore, we don't need certain organs. There's kids being born now with an extra bone inside of their forearm that helps with certain aspects of like strength and
Hmm.
all these evolutionary adaptations that are happening pretty slowly. There's got to be a way to speed that up. There's got to be a way that we can be our ultimate selves. Like, I'm not trying to be crazy here, but in like the next 100, 200 years, I'm going to start feeling like people are going to start having a certain ability, certain to have like a mutant power. It's not going to be anything cool like fucking X-Men. It's going to be like something stupid like ultimate spit where you can spit super far or something like that. But there's going to be some modifications to the body where you're going to start seeing more people like Usain Bolt with incredible speed and incredible athletic skills, and all these people we consider gifted are going to start becoming more of the normal because we're going to start reaching our bodies, our kind of species full potential of actually evolving.
So they are actually working on this. Have you ever heard of CRISPR?
Yes. But that's like
Okay, yeah.
modifying them in the womb and all that.
Yes, but it's essentially gene editing and removing what is considered and what historically has been known to be bad genes, disease causing genes, cancer causing genes. You can even go all the way down to a molecular level of, I want my kid to have blue eyes,
Yeah,
things
that's
like that. But
fucking nuts, dude.
you can create your human. You could create multiple Usain Bolts and things like that. So these are ideas that are already in practice, and well, not fully in practice, but these are ideas that could be very well common practice within the next, I'd say, probably 30 to 40, 50 years.
But would
You'll be
you
able, or not you, but your kids will be able to walk into a hospital and be like, we're pregnant. Here's the baby I want, with like a check off list of everything they want and need.
see?
And that's the baby they're going to have.
I've talked about if that happens and they have to have like a balance out scenario where the doctor's like, all right, if you want your kid to be really athletic, he's got to have like dementia at the age of like 30 or something. Because it's not fair. You can't just program the ultimate baby. Like, if you want all these and all this, no, it's supposed to be a kind of a roll of the dice too. But I see the benefits in CRISPR when it comes to the aspect of like, if you find out your kid's going to be mentally challenged.
Yeah.
Me, knowing that that's my biggest fear in life is that my kid might be mentally challenged, on the aspect of, I know as a parent, I don't think I could have the fortitude to be able to handle that, because any parent that does have like something like that, like have a kid that is mentally challenged, I give them props to have the strength to be able to do that. But for some people, it's not for them. It's something they can't handle because they can barely even take care of themselves. So I'm like, to be able to fix that, to give your kid a long and happy life, to make sure that you're not worrying every single minute of every single day until you die, which you end up doing as a parent anyway. But on the aspect of like,
Ain't that the truth?
but like they're never going to leave because you have to take care of them forever. And then what happens after you're gone? Who's going to protect them? It's this aspect of like, you, I feel like there's a way to get it when you're at the age of like 10 or 15, that you should be able to start trying to find ways to really take out these crutches that we've been building up for the longest time. And I don't want to shit on social media totally, but it is an idea of how technology is making us evolve. 5 years ago, I would have never thought the internet would have hit this level. I don't think 10 years ago people would have thought the internet would have hit this level. And all it's doing is creating severe depression. And a
Hmm.
really article pissed me off the other day because it said that doctors are now diagnosing kids with more ADHD based on Zoom calls, that they're doing Zoom schooling. And I'm like, of course, because they're at home doing nothing all fucking day. Like, they got to sit in a classroom or sit in their house, in their room, on their computer in a virtual classroom. No wonder they're going to be all hyped up. That's not ADHD, but it's us trying to categorize and labelize everything. And it turns out like a lot of the issues, it really boils down to not just nutrition, but on the aspect of like, we're creating multiple handicaps in way of making our lives easier, better, and really killing our attention spans. I believe we're creating the four horsemen. We're creating, death. We're creating war amongst each other with social media. We're doing all these things because it's way too comfortable to survive right now. We're neglecting the basics of functions. How many people refuse to shave only when they have to go out to work or something? They rather, when they're off for the next couple of days, they don't worry about shaving. They're like, oh, fuck it, I'm gonna grow my beard out. I don't have shit to do. I'm gonna sit in my sweatpants, eat a bag of Doritos, and not give a fuck.
Yes, to all of
Oh yeah.
that. But see, all right. So going back to CRISPR real quick, so you would use it for obviously noble purposes, intentions and things like that. If if you knew you could prevent a serious thing for your child, that's what you would want to use it for, and that's a great noble reason to use it. But again, we as humanity have to take it to that next level. Oh, sure, this is what we invented it for, but this is actually what we can use it for, and then we become our own problem. So it's not about taking care of the negative, it's now about creating perfection. We want to play God. We always want to play God in everything that we do. So there's good and bad that comes with it. And quite honestly, I thought about this many times since I've learned about CRISPR and gene editing and things like that. As tough as it may be to swallow that, you could have problems, potential problems. It's one of those things, like, we chose to become parents, and so we just got to take the challenges that come. I mean, we had two perfectly healthy kids, and as time goes on, you learn more and more about those kids. My oldest, for the longest time, everybody kept trying to call him autistic, and we even started to believe it ourselves. We finally went and got him tested. He's not autistic. Fucker's gifted. He's smarter than any 6-year-old I've ever known my entire life. I've never known 6-year-olds to do math problems and equations that he's doing right now. Or he had a vocabulary at 4 years old that they said was on a fourth and fifth grade level. So he's very smart, and that creates challenges in itself. So I wouldn't have edited anything in his, even if he was autistic. And our youngest is just, he's
Beautiful.
there.
Beautiful.
He's beautiful. He's a beautiful kid. He's there. But it's absolutely crazy. And now I can't remember the second point you were making here.
Well, here's
Oh,
the
social media,
okay.
social media.
Go.
So, it's absolutely important that we as adults or parents, whatever role you play, uh, I don't want to say oversight, and I don't want to say, watchdog, big brother, but like, for our kids, my wife and I decided that for social media, they are not going to have any type of social media accounts. Um, Anytime soon. We haven't picked an exact age. I don't think you'll ever know an exact age. It's when we feel that they're responsible enough to handle something like that. We don't even let them on the internet or anything like that. I pull up YouTube on my iPad so he can watch his stupid Mario videos, because he'd much rather watch Mario videos instead of play Mario. Um, and things like that. But we don't give them a lot of computer time. We don't do anything like that, because I've seen the day. I'm 34 years old, and I am affected by the things of social media a lot. So social media depresses the hell out of me, and I suffer from depression on a daily basis. You know this. I know this. A lot of my or a lot of my listeners know this, which is why I have to take these breaks from Facebook and things like that occasionally, because I just become so overwhelmed with everything that's happening in the world, and the boldness and the rudeness. Uh, Social media has also given people the opportunity to display their opinions, their thoughts, and their emotions and hide behind a keyboard. They don't have to do the face to face interaction where more likely you would have rebuttal and things like that. Because on social media, if somebody rebuts you, guess what you can do? Block, delete, and then you feel vindicated and you can continue to do what you want to do. It's turned us into an age of monsters, people against people, when we really should be people for people.
Well, I told you, well, after I took my social media break, that you probably should do the same thing just to get your mindset and everything like that. Because once you start noticing that follower count going up and down and up and down, and you feel like you're plateauing and shit, you've already lost the battle within yourself. I mean, you lost the battle
Mhm.
of, like, you've let this thing take control of your mind and everything like that. And it can get down a really dark road from there. I just post and ghost, besides if I'm talking to one of you guys or something. But it's just,
And I try to keep that mentality that you have, the whole post and then get the fuck off and don't get back on until you need to respond to a comment or respond to a message or something like that. I try to be as supportive as I can and go and like everybody's posts and things like that. But even that becomes daunting, and I feel overwhelmed trying to do all of that too. So even when I'm using social media for good intentions, like promoting my podcast or something like that, that's over. Even when it's not even supposed to be overwhelming, that becomes overwhelming. So social media is an effective yet dangerous tool. And like any kind of tool, we need to use it appropriately. We need to use it sparingly. And we need to also remember that humans were not made to be prisoners of our own devices. Humans need to be out there doing things beyond what we can hold in our hands or put in front of our faces. We need to be out there reconnecting with the world, reconnecting with other people, interfacing. I love that word, interfacing. We need
Well,
to be.
the mindset I think of it is, imagine if I could embrace a million people that would leave me and not be there for me when I need them, or if I could embrace the 5 or 10 that I have. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, I've met some great people like you, like David, like Mark, people that I could rely on when I need them and stuff like that too. But also, it is a give and take too. Like, I've given you some of my stuff and you've tried to give me a little bit of yours, but overall it's like
Right.
you can sense there's that overall looming feeling of, you start to really notice, like, it becomes a lot. It really does. And it's for the people that go like, don't care to let people talk shit on 'em. This is my whole thing of, like, when people were saying like fuck Trump and all this stuff, get him banned off all social media platforms. I'm like, that I look at it in the eyes of like depression, like, because if one person talking shit can bother the hell out of you, a million people talking shit and you don't have a way to respond back to it, that's not healthy for anybody. And I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Depression is something, when you have it, you realize like, this is not something I would want to put on anybody, because the feeling of every single day, or waking up one day feeling okay, waking up the next day wondering why you're even here, is just an aspect of like, there's so much greater things to be looking forward to, rather than looking for what if my post gets 5 likes, 6 likes, 7 likes. And it's like, it boils down to a deeper level of like, I think we could do a reverse thing, like how we did with like when the masks were first being initiated. When the masks were first being initiated, everyone was like, I'm not wearing that fucking mask, or that's so weird shit. And it was really weird for a couple of months. But now we're
Mhm.
about a year in, and guess what? It's weird if you don't have a mask. Like, that's the first thing you notice when, and it's kind of like programming. It's like, we kind of got programmed into think that masks are normalized. Let's do that with social media.
Yeah.
Everything. Australia banned Google, is banning Google. They're banning Facebook. They're banning a bunch of things to where people in that country are not going to be able to have that. So I'm looking at it like, how far along would it take for us to get rid of all social media, or find a way to be able to regulate? No, screw it. Take it all out. Take it all out, because that's the only way you're going to do it. You have to do it dry. You have to cut it dry. Um, all of it's gone, and EMP hits, and the world's technology, internet, everything goes down. How long until we get normalized to where we start picking up on things that are erasing the errors or viruses that got put into us through that? And I'm like, I know past couple of my episodes been like shitting on social media a lot, but it's like, it truly is like this thing that's more of a crutch at times too. You can use it in a positive way, but it makes it very, very difficult, because there's so many damn temptations. People complain about their information being leaked out there. I don't think anybody's like, I mean, if Google's selling my search history to fucking whoever, then go ahead for advertising. I don't care. Like, I've already kind of admitted to it, because I'm already on the device. I accept the terms and conditions that go with it. Plus, if they're looking at my search history, it's like, what, porn, and then looking up like
Mhm.
good supplement advertisements or something. Like,
Yeah.
screw it, like, it doesn't make sense where people can go down the rabbit hole of so like schizophrenic, where they feel like the world is trying to out to get them. They're listening to your phones and wiretaps and stuff like that. And I'm like, it's being forced into us. And I'm like, there's a way in the future that if we did an opposite of like how we programmed with social media, if we backtrack that all by cutting it all out, eventually you're going to start looking at things that are bigger and better. You're not going to worry so much about your follower count. You're not going to worry about this. And it might actually create a more awakened earth, a more evolved earth, because I believe as much as we've evolved with our devices, we're using that as our crutch now, rather than evolving ourselves. Like, being able to do a perfect game in bowling, being able to find like the ultimate frequency or something like that, using forms of meditation. I'm not a meditation guy, but I get where people are trying to find a way to expand their own capabilities, because back in the day, you used to be able to read a book and enhance your own intelligence, or lift some
Mhm.
weights, enhance your physical performance. Well, now it's just like, I have 100,000 Twitter followers. It's like, what happens if you get banned? Then you lose it all and you got to retrack it.
Right. Right. Um, I don't. I don't think that we should totally 100% eradicate social media because it does serve its purpose. It really does. It keeps families and friends connected as we all move into our different lives around not just our our nation but around Earth. I mean, I've got friends globally everywhere, not just from podcasting and stuff like that, but just friends I've met from the Navy, friends I grew up with, and things like that. So
That's
social
why you
media is
have
a
a
great
cell
way to stay
phone and
connected.
text messages.
It's why you have a cell phone and text
That was the
messages.
thing
But
with delete Facebook. Everybody was commenting, "How am I going to remember my friends and family's birthdays?" And it's like, well, fucking call them, dick. Like
but
if you are actually going to wish them a happy birthday and you actually give a shit about them, you should probably have their number, or you should have another form of contacting them rather than using Facebook.
But Facebook or Instagram serves a better purpose to put everything in one big picture for you too. So instead of me going through and being like, "Oh, how's Johnny doing today?" Texting him, blah blah blah. Sure I should text him, but I could also pull up Facebook and real quick and be like, "Oh, look, Johnny's having a snow day. That's really cool." Or Maria is showing off her damn horses again. Why doesn't she just send those things to the glue factory? I hate horses. Um, but social media
Why?
does. I've always
Why?
hated horses. I've always hated them. They hate me too. They sense we sense our mutual hatred for each other, and it's awful. I get kicked, I get bucked off, I get bitten. But it does serve its purpose, but I really feel like we should regulate it. So, case in point, when I was in the Navy, there were several times throughout our deployments and stuff like that where you lose internet. They shut down Facebook, or they don't shut down Facebook, but they shut down your ability to access Facebook or anything like, I guess Facebook was really the only big social media thing back then. Twitter, meh. Um, and Instagram was still only something you really did on your phone. You didn't try to do it on your computer. So, but you didn't have access to Facebook for days upon days. What did you have? You had your email system, and then, oh my God, you actually had to talk to people. You had to talk to people. So, like, if I wanted to talk to my wife or something like that, I'd either send her an email or I would find the time to go pick up a phone during the time that they allowed phone calls off the ship and be like, hey, I'm going to call her instead of interacting through social media. So it is possible to regulate our time on social media and reestablish human connections through more conventional means, and but still have that. So when social media came back, we were always excited, like, oh hey, I can log into Facebook real quick, let me get caught up, and then it would be gone again, and then you weren't as upset that as time went on, the less access you had to Facebook, the less upset you were about it because you began to grow without it. You began to be able to understand that you can have relationships without social media. And when it was there, it was a treat. When it wasn't, it was like, oh, hey, okay. So I really feel like that we need to be a little bit more like that in our lives. Set time limits for how much time we spend on social media and things like that. I try to schedule out my day as much as I possibly can. I spend a little bit, probably still too much time on social media than I should, but I try to regulate it to certain hours of the day or things like that. Or if it's a really boring day at work and I'm not driving the boat, I might get on Instagram a little bit more or something like that. I've been trying to find a way to walk away from Facebook officially. I still haven't really found a way to do it yet. But uh, you know, just regulate your time and then spend the rest of it actually connecting with something. Instead of me staring at a phone while my son's over here playing, put down my phone and I'm playing with him, or I'm having a conversation with my wife, or anything like that. When this whole COVID thing is over and people feel a little bit more comfortable going out to other people's homes and things, like having our friends come over and have a beer and a barbecue and bullshit, that's that's what we need to do. I don't think we need to eradicate it. I just think we need to regulate it.
There's a large amount of people that are moving to Florida and a large amount of people that are moving to Texas because of how much they don't give a shit about COVID. Like, I don't know how bad it is down there, but there are still people, like, I think now at this point are just like, I don't give a shit anymore. I don't know how long this is going to last. And they're just going over to each other's houses. But it kind of, like, I did a podcast a while ago where we were talking about China's social credit economic system. And that was
Mhm.
when people in China, they would snitch on their neighbors for not following rules if they jaywalked or something. something, and then they would get like a tax break from the government. But this thing would implement, and you would be labeled as a bad person in the eyes of society. So it started happening with the masks down here. People were snitching on other people. Shit, when Ted Cruz tried to go on a trip to Cancun, everybody's like, look, you son of a bitch, you're staying here. He flew to Cancun and then flew back.
Well, I've got some opinions on that and Ted Cruz.
And his dog's named Snowflake.
It was in pretty poor taste that he decided to go to Cancun in the middle of his state's
Yeah.
natural disaster. But I mean, I also can't fault the guy either. He was already on his like planned vacation. The Senate was adjourned for their week-long holiday vacation, whatever you want to fucking call it, and stuff like that. And sure, it just, snowstorm happens and he wants to take his family to Cancun. But as a state senator, well, he's not a state senator, as an elected official, representative of the state of Texas, he needed to be there doing what he could to help out the constituents who put him there, using his federal resources to try to get as much help as possible. And he just kind of failed. And he acknowledged that failure. I don't know if he did that under just public pressure or if he truly felt bad for what he did. He acknowledged his failure to do so.
If he would have got caught, he would have been in Cancun. It was like the guy who took a
Oh,
video
definitely.
saying people need to stay inside their homes, and he's like, I'm inside my home, and he's outside and shit. They're like, hold on a second, you should have a chandelier above your fucking head, not you being outside right now in the middle of like a beach vacation. They set up like a fake background and stuff. What I found was funny was after someone posted that on Ted Cruz, I just Googled him. I was like, let's learn a little bit more about Ted Cruz, see what the whole case scenario is. So after looking through a couple articles, I found an old interview when he was running for office. And it was like they have his mom come in and tell him how much of a good person he is. And he was like, I go to church every weekend. And she was like, what the like you get to see her look over like, what do you mean? No. And she like called him out on it too. And I was like, that's kind of perfect. But like that type of stuff, like you eventually get people fed up to the point they don't want to deal with this shit anymore, and they just go out and they want to do what they used to be able to do. It's at this. That's kind of like what Florida's mentality was. It's like they look at you if you wear a mask as you're an idiot. And I'm not pro mask. I'm not against it either. I'm going to wear it. I've been wearing it for so long, and I'm just so used to it. But it's also an idea of like this. You can't keep this going forever. And that one Megan McCain or whoever it was that did that giant interview, and people were just calling her out because she was worried about not being like the first round of vaccines. When's it going to be her turn? She wants to hang out with friends, and she did a comparison to Israel or something. It went so badly, everyone just gifted her and memed her and put her trending on Twitter of saying like, you dumbass, like all this type of stuff. And I'm like, it's at a point where people are just like, come on. Like, I know so many people that are sitting there saying like, oh, it's irresponsible for you to go over to somebody's house. And I know they're going over to somebody's house. I know they're doing it, but it's this, the eyes of society says that's a bad thing to do. And I'm just like, oh, fuck it. Just eventually it's going to end up being like Texas, or it's going to end up being like Florida, where they're all like, if you want to stay home, but don't stop people from staying home. I mean, first of all, the government should be giving you enough to be able to live at home if you want to stay. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you can't like close down a business or something.
Yeah, there's so many opinions that you could have about this whole thing. I'm like you. I'm not anti-mask. I'm not pro-mask. I wear it. I wear it at work because I have to. But I wear it out in public because I as much as I really don't want to, I feel maybe it's just the socially responsible thing to do. But I also believe in going out and living my life as well. So I mean, we go out to restaurants when they're open and things like that. We wear our mask when we walk through the door until we sit down at the table, and then we take it off because you can't get COVID once you're sitting at a table. You can only get it when you're walking through the restaurant. But I mean, and things like that. But we're going to get to a point. I truly believe we're getting closer and closer to the point. I mean, the numbers are trending down, which is always a good thing. Deaths are trending down. The number of new cases are trending down. Whether that has anything to do with the vaccine or not, I have no idea. Or maybe it's just things are maybe it's just the natural flow of things, this up and down, this ebb and flow that we've got going on. But we're going to get to a point where the mask will become, if you want to, type situation, like you were just talking about. If you want to wear a mask, sure, but if you don't want to wear the mask, it's not detrimental if you don't want to. Oh, you want to go out to the bar with your friends, or even have a gathering of 6 or more people at somebody's house, sure, that's going to be fine, but you remember, you just do it at your own risk. Or wait, do it the way that we've been doing it through every single virus or every single flu season, or I mean, we didn't go through all this when uh all these other pandemics, I wouldn't call them pandemics, I guess, but when we don't do this for the common flu. Yes, COVID was new. It is still new, and it's still being studied, and it's still evolving and stuff like that, but at some point we've just got to let it nature run its course.
Yeah.
I kind of hate to say that because it sounds so dark and everything, but it's not survival of the fittest, but eventually our bodies will become used to it and things like that, and the next generation and the next generation and the next generation, and COVID will be like, what the fuck was COVID, years
I'll,
from now.
I'll throw a disclaimer up at the bottom saying we're both not immunologists.
No, we are not, and these are just our opinions, guys.
Yeah.
These are just our opinions.
It's crazy because like I saw like because everything you see on the news is all about this, that, COVID, 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 COVID. But the weirdest thing was the other day was I don't know if you saw the news with the Denver flight that went off.
Yeah.
That was like a
Uh,
fucking movie. Imagine looking out your fucking window on an airplane and be like, well, we're finally going to be able to take that trip that we wanted to. Finally, now travel's open back up. I get to go live my life. You look out the window and you see your airplane
Boom.
engine exploded off. And like, I don't think that, like, that would have scared the shit out of me. And it was funny to see the people that were coming outside, like, airplane part fell on my house. I hope the insurance covers it. I was like, that's just nuts to me. It's in Denver when it happened. They were flying to Honolulu. And I just looked at it like, that's fucking insane. Thank God nobody was hurt. But I
Yeah.
put a joke up on Twitter. I was like, I want to see the marijuana sales at the local dispensaries probably went up after that. Like everybody's freaking out afterwards. Need to calm down.
Yeah, that shit was crazy, man. I saw video footage of it and stuff like that, and just one of the reasons I don't like flying is just simple shit like that could happen any day. Or, Donnie Darko situation where kid's just chilling in his room and boom, here comes his engine crashing through his roof and things like that. That shit scares me. But I commend the pilots and the crew for getting everybody back safely and things like that. I also commend Boeing for acknowledging uh the lack of effectiveness on this particular model of the Boeing 777 and grounding all these planes until further investigation and modifications can be taken. So there's a lot of great things that came out of this and great action that took place from that.
Yeah.
So
I think people need to understand, like, even with something as simple like that, even driving on a road, like, there's can be accidents like that that happen.
mhm.
I'm happy that nobody was hurt from it. But have you ever heard of those black box tapes that came out from when that airplane crashed and they landed in an airplane hangar?
No.
The pilots were trying their best because their airplane was going down. They landed on the runway, but they went inside of an airplane hangar and it exploded. Dude, they had the live tapes and recording of the cockpit when it was happening. And the one like pilot is screaming, he's like, I can smell my own flesh. And it was like listening to that, I was like, I'll fucking take a boat, a car, a yacht, whatever the hell I gotta take. I'll take a fucking canoe to get to where I have to go. I don't really feel like flying. That just shit scares the hell out of me.
Uh any kind of travel should scare the shit out of you because again, back to that humanity factor. Um Put humans behind the wheel of anything. I mean, come on, I've crashed a boat. So um before I was a captain, guys. So I mean, yeah. That's why flying is really not one of my I would like I'm like you, I would prefer to either drive or hell, I will take the boat somewhere. Oh, you want to go to Europe? Let's take a cruise over to Europe because I don't even want to fly.
Yeah, but being stuck on a fucking cruise in the middle of the ocean, like all the people, like when the pandemic first started and the travel ban was happening, there were people that were out on cruise ships that couldn't go back to port because they weren't allowed to. They didn't have the clearance to be able to do so. I'm like, imagine being stuck on a fucking Mickey Mouse cruise. Oh my God. If I have to hear that fucking "It's so wonderful life" or whatever over and over again, I might shoot somebody in the head.
Well, I can tell you there are worse places to get stuck. Yeah, sure. Most people would probably agree with you that being stuck out on a cruise ship for weeks on end. Not fun, but I honestly I would not be bothered by that. But that might just be because I was in the Navy and I was out on a ship for weeks and months at a time and not being able to go to land or anything like that. So that shit doesn't actually bother me. As long as they kept feeding me, I'm fine. If I was on a Disney cruise that got stuck out there in the middle of the ocean, fine, take my kids. Go play with
Eventually,
Mickey, kids.
eventually they're going to run out of fish and chicken for you to eat, and you're going to end up figuring out that they're feeding you people, and they've been taking one passenger a day and putting them in the freezer and then slowly cooking them.
Well, Jeffrey Dahmer was on to something.
First of all, did you see Arnie Hammer try to eat somebody's ribs?
Oh my god, this whole Army Hammer thing had me.
It's fucking awesome.
Oh my god, it had me rolling. I mean, I don't condone what he was saying or anything like that, but I mean, like, he was very brazen with what he was saying. I couldn't believe it. That's crazy.
Hey, at least he's honest about his shit. If more politicians were honest about their shit, we might be in a better situation.
Yeah, the man knows what he wants, and if that's what turns him on, okay, he's who are we to judge? I guess I don't know. He wants to eat people. That's weird.
Lest they be judged
Hannibal
by
Lecter.
Hannibal. Is he that bad of a guy though? I don't really know a whole lot about Hannibal Lecter.
He ate people.
Okay.
Yeah. Other than that, he was a damn good psychiatrist, I guess, but he just ate people.
Did he convince them that to let them eat them, or did he murder them?
He murdered. It's been years since I've seen Silence of the Lambs or anything like that. So honestly, I can't remember the exact storyline. I just remembered he was a cannibal.
Is it
Hannibal
good
the cannibal.
cannibalism if somebody chops off their arm for you to eat? Like, let's say me and you crashed on an airplane, we're in the mountains, and I say, "Hey, you can eat my arm." Is that still you're going to be tried for that?
I don't think so. If you willingly gave me your arm and you live to tell the world that you willingly gave me your arm, I don't think I would be tried for that. If I took a rock and bashed you over the head and then ate your arm, yeah, I committed. Although they might say I was just trying to survive, so I might get a reprieve.
But here's the thing. Imagine if I gave you my arm, admittedly saying I'll let you have my arm and then you can eat it to survive, but then I ended up dying. And then eventually they go like, how do we know you didn't kill him for his arm?
Do we have any type of recording device and I
Nope.
can record you saying this?
Exactly. And do you even want to live knowing you ate somebody? Like I
No,
would,
no.
I
I would
wouldn't.
starve to death
Yeah.
before I ever eat. I would much rather, as much as I love my animals, I'd much rather kill them and cook them in order to survive than to eat another human. If it just came down that you had to eat another human, I'm dying, dead. Or you know what? And if somebody else was good enough, or good with living with the fact that they ate a human, maybe I'm the one who needs to sacrifice myself. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think because you hear all those survivor stories, and I'm like, some of them, I'm like, would you want to live after that? Like, imagine if
No,
you got hit by like a nuke and you survived, and you were just blind, deaf, and you had no sense of anything, like just being like a block where someone has to feed you every single day, you can't even take care of yourself. I'm like, I don't know if I would want to survive after that.
I wouldn't want to deal with the psychological after effects of it. And not only that, it's not healthy to eat another human being. So um there are so many medical reasons why you shouldn't be eating another human being. I get it, it's for survival, but I don't think I would want to deal with any of the implications that follow eating another person ever.
The
So
Mayans did all
I'll just
right.
die. Did they?
Yeah, they were a
They
pretty
couldn't
tough
even predict
tribe.
the end of the world properly.
Yeah, but they were still
They
ahead
were
of the
all high
game.
off of thigh meat or something. I don't know.
They had a killing floor. Like each level of their little pyramids or temples, the first floor like took I think about 15,000 people died, women and children, everything. They all just sacrificed 15,000 people to be able to create the first floor of it. I'm like they legit had a killing floor. Like some of their ideas were batshit insane, but I bet they had some things about their culture that was like that's a pretty good idea.
Oh, I mean, we could say that about any culture. A lot of cultures did things that were batshit insane, or a lot of cultures also did something that were like, "Oh shit, we can learn from that. Yeah, let's do that." Yep,
Yeah, like we
yep.
pulled a lot of our stuff out of Greek and Roman, but they actually found out now since the rise of Thor and all that and Marvel became so popular, people started looking at Norse mythology and realized we actually have more in common with Norse mythology. And they're wondering
Hmm.
why we were told we were more in common with Greek and all these arts and literature. And I was like, because telling you that you have more in common with barbaric people that used to fight every single day and rape and do all these things is a lot worse than telling you came from some dude that used to write plays. Like, it's a little bit better saying you came from that. So you're not trying to think, well, instinctually, I'm Viking, so I get to go claim this house as my own and shit on my neighbor's lawn.
Oh, just because that's your heritage doesn't mean laws and common courtesy hasn't evolved.
You can't
I,
ingrain that out of you.
I, I'm German. Does that mean I want to attack every Jewish person I see?
No, but you might be happier if your son had blonde hair and blue eyes.
His hair is almost blonde, but no, he's got brown eyes just like me. So he's yeah. But
Is that your CRISPR kid? Is that you want a kid with blonde hair, blue eyes?
no. Oh God, blonde hair, blue eyes. No, no, thank you.
I would like to
That's all I
have
would think. That's all I would think of. I was like, oh shit,
a
Hitler's gonna
Ryan
ruin my
Reynolds
child.
baby. A Ryan Reynolds baby.
I would take a Ryan Reynolds baby, especially if it grows up to be Deadpool.
Minus the Canada part.
Okay, what do you got against Canada? David, close your ears.
I love Canada. I actually wish I could move there.
I got nothing against Canada. Never been there, but I've got nothing against it. It's never done anything to me that I know of.
There's just one country I can't
Give us
stand.
cheap prescriptions. Mexico.
What the hell you got against Mexico?
Nothing.
Mexico's
I'm just
awesome.
throwing it. Mexico is great.
As long
They
as
gave
you
us good
stay
food.
inside the hotel and don't go outside the hotel.
Don't drink the water.
That's true. I think the one country I can't stand is probably Antarctica.
Damn penguins.
Just it's too
Why?
cold.
Is it because they're marching everywhere?
It's too cold. They literally would probably pay you to live there. It's like when you go to Alaska. Like the rent there, the house building, all that is so freaking cheap because nobody wants to live there.
I'd go to Antarctica. I would, just to say I've been. They do cruises to Antarctica.
I'm saying if you have to live there
How long?
rest of your life. Think it through. Think it through. If you had to pick a place to live for the rest of your life, where would it be?
No, not Antarctica. Place to live for the rest of my life.
I'd probably live in Alaska. I mean, I'd hate the cold, but the idea that I don't have to really work, I can work like one day a month and be able to afford paying my house because like rent there's like $400 a month.
Nah, I don't know.
Live in
I
Vegas.
don't know. Vegas is fun. I think it would get old after a while.
You got nothing but Joshua trees to stare at. Where would be the perfect
actually,
place to start your cult?
Ooh, a cult. That's an even better question. I think the perfect place to start a cult is Antarctica.
Yeah, because you honestly could probably make a lot of those penguins do what you want. You could probably train them to be, I mean, if you could train a duck to be like a dog, where it like acts like a dog, I'm pretty sure you could train a bunch of penguins to do your bidding and shit. Like, go get me the mail.
Yeah. Yeah. Antarctica would be a good place to start a cult. And actually, now that I'm really thinking about it, I'm thinking about like all the places I've ever been or even the places I've wanted to be. Antarctica, actually, I'd live the rest of my life there.
Till a fucking sea lion comes out of the ice and eats you. Just gnaws
Well,
you
what
while
am I
you're trying.
doing outside? It's too cold.
You got to get your Amazon package. How else are you going to get deliveries? They're shipping
The
drones
drone
to
is
your
going to
house.
fly it in, and then there's going to be a door that opens in my roof, and then it just flies the package in, and then flies out, and I shut the door.
How advanced do you think your fucking igloo is in Antarctica?
If I'm going to be if I'm going to be living in Antarctica, I'm going to have a fucking Tony Stark house, okay?
God.
I'm going to have Jarvis being like waking like opening my windows. It's a beautiful negative 50 degrees outside today.
Your heating bill is going to be insane.
Solar energy.
All right. Northern Lights, powered by the Northern Lights. I like that idea.
Be the Southern Lights.
What?
In the South.
Oh, okay.
I'm in Antarctica. I wouldn't see the Northern Lights.
Isn't that where the Northern Lights are? Or is that Alaska?
Yeah, that would be in the Arctic.
It's same place, same snow, all same shit.
No, you got the Arctic and then you got the Antarctic. Do we need to go back through Earth science here?
I think I just discovered what something on my bucket list is I never knew. I would like to taste the
What?
snow in all the different places there's snow.
That is a very interesting thing. And
That's my
you
study.
want to
Does it all
taste the
taste the same?
snow at all the different places that there's snow.
Antarctica, Alaska, does the snow taste the same? And which one has better snow that I can make an ice cream business or a snow cone business?
I'm going to venture to guess that Antarctica probably has the nicer tasting snow because it's probably less pollution down there affecting the water. Whereas up in Alaska, you'll probably still get decent tasting snow, but there's still all the pollution that goes into it.
Then why are all our bottles of water have a picture of Alaska or Glacier Springs on it?
I have no idea. Like, why do we buy Fiji water? I mean, who gives a fuck where the water comes
Dasani's
from?
just Italian for Coke.
Like, water's water. Just drink the damn shit.
But I want it to be reversed osmosis, and I also want it to come out of volcano ash.
Then go move to Mount St. Helens. I don't know.
There's a water that's made with volcanic ash, and then there's also a toothpaste that's made with charcoal. Don't buy that
Yeah.
ever, because it just ruins your sink and ruins your clothes.
I've never understood the whole charcoal thing.
Looks like you just ate a
Charcoal
piece of
face
coal.
mask, charcoal toothpaste, charcoal soap. I bought charcoal infused body soap once, and I just nope. Used it a few times and tossed it. I just couldn't. It was weird.
You just reminded me there's a person at my work that makes his own soap, and he owes me a bar of soap.
Is it like hemp soap or something like that?
I don't know. He puts it and ferments it in jars and stuff, but like his daughter's the one I work with. And she goes, every time I ask him to help me out with something, all he keeps saying is, I got to make Robbie his soap. I don't have time. And it's been like a month and a half and I still haven't gotten my soap. So I feel like he's just using it as an excuse now.
Maybe he's just making you a bunch of soap.
I would be
You're gonna
awesome.
come in with like a crate full of soap.
I would like to put it on my shelf like a collector's edition.
There you go.
Like people collect Marvel Happy Meal toys. I'm going to collect bars of soap.
Absolutely.
And
Healthier, it's better. Bars of soap, I guess, are a better thing to collect than toys. I mean, at least those are useful. Toys, what do they do? Is just going to sit there and collect dust? I say as I look at my toys gathered here on my desk.
I said that for a specific reason because I know you have those Marvel collector things that are sitting on your thing because I have the same ones on my shelf.
Actually, the kids stole those little jerks.
Well,
So now all I have left is my Star Wars toys.
it's not a bad life.
No.
Better than a life in
Not at all.
Alaska.
True. Or Antarctica.
Poor penguins. I'm seeing how long I can
you?
keep this conversation going. There is a trash truck that is outside my house right now. Is it
Okay,
getting
I was
picked up
like,
by the
what is
microphone?
that? Yeah, I was like, what is that? It's like a moaning, like a.
They never leave it like my trash can at the end of the driveway like I have it. Like I put it off into the grass. They always pull it and they drop it off in the middle of my driveway. So I go to back out in my car. I'm like, oh, there's a fucking trash. Why? Just off to the side, dude, like a normal fucking person.
Ours do the same thing. I've seen them leave it out in the road before, and I'm just like, what the fuck is wrong with these people?
Go on strike again. I dare you. See how quick you lose your job.
I'm getting pissed off at them here. So the town that I live in, they went from picking up your recycling every 2 weeks to picking it up once a month, which I'm just like, fuck it, whatever. And so I end up throwing most of my recycling into the trash. I know I was just preaching about saving the earth earlier, but I mean, I can't just let my recycling pile up either. So now they want to go back to every 2 weeks, but they want you to pay for it. They want you to pay extra on top of the bills you pay to have them come collect this shit. So you could have your recycling picked up every 2 weeks.
It's like a McDonald's
like,
salad. Why is that more
Nope.
to eat healthier?
I don't get it. I've been meaning to go down to the town hall and file a complaint, but that's all the way on the other side of town, and I have no reason to go over there.
That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work.
I literally have no reason to go to that side of town except to do that. So unless I had another reason to go over there, I probably will never do it. So, but I just don't get it. Like, why are you going to charge me extra to save the planet?
Because it costs extra to get rid of what we're trying to do to save the planet. If we all just
Whatever.
sing "We Are Family" in a circle, hopefully.
Yeah, I was just sing "Kumbaya," motherfucker.
We're ending on that. Chuck, thank you so much for doing the podcast again, man. Where can people find you? All your locations, your apps, your platforms, your Spotify, your YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
All of those. No.
All those.
I'm not on YouTube yet. I am considering it. But no, you can find me on all the major podcast directories. Chuck Goes to the Movies. We talk about all the different films that influence our impact our lives or influence our love of other movies. You can mainly find me on Instagram. I've been shut out of my Facebook account, my professional one, for some reason. They removed me as the admin, and I haven't been able to get back in. And Facebook support is shit. I hope you hear this, Facebook.
I got banned for
So
24 hours after my Freemason episode.
I almost got banned for calling Wonder Woman trash. So I don't.
I've
Facebook is
never seen
stupid.
it. I bet I'll like it.
Uh, no, Wonder Woman 84. The first Wonder Woman's fine.
Yeah,
The sequel,
I know.
stupid.
I was
It's
telling
trash.
I was telling one guy, John Odette, I was telling him that every movie I love people hate. And he goes, I don't think so. He goes, I bet I like a lot of your movies. First one I said Green Lantern, he gave me a long ass pause. I was like, exactly.
You changed my mind on Green Lantern. You've got to change his mind on Green Lantern. But yes, you can find me on Instagram mainly. That's where I'm going to be for the most part. And like I said, I am going to hopefully be making the expansion into YouTube sometime later this year. So I will make the big announcement there.
Any final messages to the people?
Spay and neuter your pets.
Well, okay. I was gonna say be like a
Barker.
okay. Be a influencer. Be the next Kevin Hart.